The 6 a.m. alarm did not just sound. It cut through the silence like a blade. Mark stared at the ceiling, his pulse thumping against his temples. He did not move for a long minute, letting the cold air of the room settle over him. When he finally reached for his phone, his fingers betrayed him. They shook, a fine, rhythmic tremor that traveled from his knuckles up to his wrists. He gripped the device hard, forcing his hand to stay still against the screen. He tapped the saved file labeled Morning Reset. A calm, steady voice filled the room, cutting through the static in his head. Mark closed his eyes. He focused on the cadence of the speaker, matching his own ragged breathing to the rhythm of the words. "I am in control of my choices," the voice commanded. Mark repeated it, his own voice thin but gaining strength with every syllable. "My body is a temple of strength." He opened his eyes, the shaking in his hands subsiding just enough to let him sit up. He stood, his legs firm, and took his first step into the morning. Mark walked into the kitchen, the floorboards creaking under his weight. The air felt thin, sharp with the memory of what used to be. He stopped in front of the cabinet. His hand hovered over the handle, fingers curling into a tight fist as his pulse quickened. The wood felt cold, solid, and impossibly heavy. He stood there for 10 seconds, his breath hitching in his throat, fighting the automatic urge to pull the door open. He did not open it. Instead, he forced his hand down, turning his back on the cabinet with a sharp, deliberate motion. He walked to the hallway mirror, his movements stiff but purposeful. He pulled a yellow sticky note from his pocket and pressed it firmly against the glass. He smoothed the edges until the paper lay flat. The words stared back at him. "I am worthy of a clear mind." He leaned in, his reflection steadying as he read the ink. He took a deep breath, the tension in his shoulders finally beginning to slacken. He stepped back, leaving the note as a barrier between his past and the present. He walked toward the sink, turned the tap, and filled a glass with water. The cool liquid grounded him. He drank it slowly, feeling the chill. He was choosing differently today. At noon, the silence of the office became deafening. The urge hit him like a physical blow, a sudden, sharp pressure behind his eyes. His heart began to hammer against his ribs, a frantic, irregular rhythm that drowned out the sound of his own breathing. He gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white, but the walls felt like they were closing in. He could not stay. He stood up, his chair scraping harshly against the floor, and walked out without looking back. He moved quickly, his stride long and uneven, navigating the 3 blocks to the park with his gaze fixed firmly on the ground. The air outside was cooler, but his skin felt hot. He reached the park, his chest heaving, and collapsed onto a wooden bench. He did not wait. He pulled his journal from his bag, the leather cover cool and firm under his trembling fingers. He opened it to a blank page. He began to write, the pen scratching violently against the paper. He listed 10 things he was grateful for, starting with the fact that he was still here, still sober. "I am building a life of freedom," he whispered. By evening, the office air felt stale, and the weight of the day pressed against his spine. Mark stepped onto the sidewalk, his legs moving on autopilot toward the familiar neon glow of the bar 3 blocks away. Every instinct screamed for the numbing comfort of the old routine. He reached the corner, the familiar hum of the street pulling him toward the entrance. He stopped. His hand reached out, fingers brushing the brick wall of the building. Then he pulled back, as if burned. The neon light flickered, casting long, harsh shadows across his face. He watched the door swing open, heard the muffled laughter from inside, and felt the familiar ache in his chest. He closed his eyes, took a ragged breath, and pivoted. He walked in the opposite direction, his pace quickening with every step away from the light. He found the bookstore 2 streets over, the glass door cool under his palm. He stepped inside, the scent of paper and quiet replacing the city noise. He pulled his headphones over his ears, drowning out the world with a guided meditation. He had not just walked away, he had chosen a different life. That night, Mark played the affirmation track until the words faded into silence. He lay flat, his muscles uncoiling from his toes to his forehead, and drifted into a deep, natural sleep without any artificial aid. The next morning, the silence of the room was broken not by the alarm, but by his own steady breathing. He opened his eyes before the clock struck 6. The fog that had clouded his mind for years was gone, replaced by a sharp, crystalline clarity. He sat up, the movement fluid and deliberate. He spoke his affirmations aloud, his voice steady and resonant, carrying more conviction than the day before. He was no longer just surviving the hours. He was reprogramming his subconscious with every breath. He stood and walked to the window, watching the first light touch the horizon. The path ahead remained long and demanding, but he took it one step at a time. He was the architect of his own recovery, and for the first time, the future belonged entirely to him.